here's the agenda of the class. So we want to understand what improvement phase is. We have done defining the problem, the customer, the process, and now we have done measurement and analyzing the problem, and now we are going to make suggestions for improvements. What are the things that we can do to improve the process that can be discussed in this phase? And obviously, here it takes creativity for you to address the issue. And there's a saying called, do not automate it, but obliterate it. That is a very important statement in process improvement. So people tend to just automate the process. For example, we have to go through this approval process rather than using paper and documents. Let us use electronic process so that people can automatically go through that. That's an approach. But a better approach is just getting rid of all those approval process, except for the ones that are really needed. For example, if you have a contract more than $100,000, then you might go through chains of approval processes. If not, they can be done in lower management level, right? That's one solution for that. So instead of automating the processes, it is important for us to make it obsolete and obliterate it so that we can create a new process that will serve the value of the process improvement better. So generating solutions, it takes creativity, it takes wisdom to do so. And for that, we have to use various methods to generate solutions. So in this part, improvement phase is both quantitative and also qualitative because we have to use creativity in generating solutions. Quantitative part comes into design of experiments. Design of experiments is called DOE, and it is needed because when we implement a solution, what happens is that we do not understand if it is really effective in improving your process. So we are using design of experiments to exactly understand and pinpoint what kind of impacts that change has brought to the business or process solution. So that has to be done in design of experiments. Then, if you have done that, now you should select the best solution amongst your alternatives that you have proposed. And that's going to be your best solution. And then if you pick that best solution, the next thing is that then, how can we design this implementation plan? Obviously you have to spend some money, some resources, rearrange things. And how are we going to do that? How does that change affect other process or other people, other departments, or the overall goal of the business? So that has to be understood. So you have to carefully craft this design, you have to craft this implementation plan. And then you have to also manage the project yourself, right? So that's a kind of project management, and you have to do that there. And then lastly, if you have crafted that implementation plan, then that's going to be your implementation phase. You are actually implementing it, and that's your project management. Now your improvement phase turns into project management phase, so that you have to understand, what are the pros and cons of each task and how they are related to each other, whether they are going over the budget or in time or not. That has to be managed there in implementation phase. So in this process, you are going to become a term project manager if you are to manage all this implementation phase yourself. So here is the criteria that I use for your term project. The first thing is brainstorm solutions to the problems and generate creative solutions. So in generating solutions, you want to use the brainstorming method and try to, just, create ideas that can be helpful for your problem, right? So you just generate alternatives and creative solutions there. And be aware that in this phase, you don't want to just, again, automate that or just use usual thing, but try to be innovative. That's what I encourage you to do. And the second criteria is carry out benchmark studies to understand industry best practices. So it is often the case that we learn a lot of wisdom from past cases and failures or successes. So, say Cooper Medical School wants to improve themselves to the next level, then they can take a look at their processes and compare them with, say, a Penn hospital processes or Pittsburgh hospital processes. So by doing so, they can understand how other hospitals are doing, and they can benchmark themselves on it. For example, the cycle time, how soon they can serve patients. Say in Pittsburgh, I heard they can get it done in an hour, but in Cooper, I heard it's usually 3 to 4 or even 5 hours. So the cycle time, door to door time, door came in, door to come out, and that's very important. And you can see how you are different. You can take the steps from entering or contacting from and entering to coming out of the door. What process did they go through, and what about the other hospitals? How did they handle that process? And they can look at it and compare and see where the discrepancies lie, and that it's benchmarking studies, and that gives a lot of ideas, right? Oh wow, so they are doing this differently or that similarly. So we may want to change these things around. That can be helpful. So learning from others' experiences and can be a good thing if you have a learning mind, if you have a humility to do so, right? So that's benchmarking studies. And the third thing is, does the team compare alternatives and do cost benefit analysis? Although you may have good ideas, good alternatives, for example, revamping the entire processes, but realistically, it might be almost impossible because you don't have the budget or the management would not allow you to do so, right? And the cost is just beyond your scope. And in that case, you might not be able to do that. However, there is the thing, small improvements, but those are realistic and can be done quickly. It's kind of low-hanging fruits, and that can be done easily, right? So it's always good to get those things done and then show the evidence of improvements to the management and stakeholders, and then move on to the next step. So that's comparing alternatives and doing cost benefit analysis. So alternative A, revamping the processes or creating a new process, or getting rid of this quality inspection process. Those are alternatives, and you have to give this cost benefit analysis. The first one can be, revamping it. It'll, it requires redesign everything from the beginning to the end, and that requires hiring expert in process design, and it will cost us about $50,000 for a month, right? And then we have other alternatives, just getting rid of this quality process, and that will instead of doing inspection, we have to put more time into the previous process, and then to spend time to understand to make sure everything is correct. Then it's going to be a little bit more costly, because you might have to hire more people in the previous process to ensure everything is going well. So in the case, say it's $10,000 per month, and it's cheaper than the first alternative. And however, what is the impact of that, right? So you have to see the benefits of that. And redesigning everything will make it very, seamless and integrated and innovative, and it'll be a long thing, and your quality will be significantly enhanced. So that's a very good thing. However, just getting rid of one process might not do much, right? The quality level might not increase as much. So there are costs and benefits, and depending on your business situation, you may want to choose an alternative that works better for your business. So that's a third one, cost benefit analysis for each alternative. And the fourth thing is, does the team make realistic recommendations that can be implemented? So what is your recommendation, right, out of all these things? And what do you want to really implement and suggest? That's have to be backed up by your own rationale and discussion and talking with your sponsor of the process. And by doing so, you can come to this conclusion and make the recommendation. And then now, if everything is finalized, then now you can finalize your to-be chart. I know you have drawn to-be chart in defined days, but now after that, you discussed everything and determined your to-be chart is going to be finalized at this stage, right? And then you're going to talk about how to implement that. Now it becomes a term project management issue. So here is the steps to do improvement phase. So first, we start with generating ideas, brainstorming, and we want to also take a look at benchmarking so that we understand how others are doing. And also we can use 5S principles to improve the current process and process change. Now you are going to make pros and cons of each alternative and we talk about this process change. And sometimes you might need to just change the layout and rearrange everything, and that can be your improvement. And we have design of experiments. Design of experiments, as I said, it helps you to pinpoint the impact of each alternative. And when you implemented something, how does that change the outcome? So that's a design of experiments. And amongst the many solutions, now you're going to select one of them after, of course, benefit analysis. Then you have implementation plan and execute that. So let's take a look at first at generating solutions. The first thing or easiest thing that we can do when you are making improvements for your process is doing brainstorming, right? When you are brainstorming, it's good to have various types of people. For example, you can have engineers, you can have business owners, you can have just regular employees or outside people, right? So who does not know anything about that process, he or she might be able to offer you a creative solution. So you diversify your team members and invite them, and then have a session of brainstorming. And in this brainstorming, we don't have any criticism for any person. However stupid idea he or she might put forth, we don't criticize. It's a brainstorming, and we are just accepting any ideas at this point. So every idea is welcomed, no criticism, no evaluation, but just welcoming of that and just discussing with each other and having fun together, right? That's a purpose of this brainstorming. And the thing is that we want to draw a big V, right? So V is verge, right? V is for verge. So verge means, two ideas are really different, but somehow if you can draw them together and connect them together, merge them together, and it's going to become a very good solution, believe it or not. So the wilder, the better at this moment, and you can even come up with crazy ideas, crazy solutions that you have never thought of or tried before. Just come up with or draw some, relationship together and merge them together. So that's a purpose of this brainstorming over there. And then if you have done that, you have many ideas and put them together, sometimes merge them together, sometimes discard them. And then you have come up with, a few list of the ideas that you have on your one hand. And then now on the other hand, you are going to do benchmarking to understand how other businesses are carrying out this benchmarking process. For example, when it comes to inventory turnover rate, Apple is doing a phenomenal job and how they are using the inventory turnover, inventory management system. We can compare that with a system that you are struggling with, right? So that can be done. Or you can talk with a business consultant or those who have worked in that industry before and then talk about that. So this benchmarking will give you a good idea about that. For example, you know, online education, right? So how other businesses or other universities are carrying out their online education, and how can we make it more effective? That can be done in this benchmarking status as well. And then we can also use this 5S methodology to just to understand and make current status better than before, right? And that's Seiri and Seiton and Seisco and Seiketsu and the Shichike. So these are uh, S, 5S from Japanese terms, and we can use them as we talked before. And we can first sort, right? Seiri means sort things around, and we want to organize everything by order and get rid of things that you don't really need. That's Seiri. So always we need to organize everything that helps us to understand how we are doing things. And Satan is set in order, right? So it's a neatness. For example, you can sort it by alphabetical order or by month or by importance or by color or by size. And doing so, it becomes very neat and organized at the time. And another example is, 30-second retrieval of a document. You don't have to struggle so much to retrieve a document, but everything is so organized and visual that you can locate it in 30 seconds. Seisco is shine, right? So, I talked about this example before, and when I went to Oki Data in Mount Laurel, their inventory warehouse was so clean, right? So I, literally touched the floor with my hands, but it was really clean. They were cleaning every day so that they can manage all this dust. And it relates to discipline of the people, right? They really organize and take care of their job environment as theirs, and everything is just organized and clean and polished, right? It's a shining, so that they are working in a friendly environment, and they don't feel that it's disorganized. And it gives an impression to the employees too that, oh wow, this is a very good company, organized and well managed company, and everyone is taking the ownership of the work environment, right? The kind of impression gives to the employees too. So they, encourage, they, set things in order and then put everything in the place and encourage their employees to take the ownership of the business and clean everything themselves. And then Seiketsu is a standardize. So we want to standardize everything. And for example, the process of cleaning, the process of ordering things, the process of making a shipment, process of putting things in order. What time, in the morning for 30 minutes, we have to clean, and then we have to discuss and then forecasting. So they tend to standardize everything, their order of business and their structure of the day. Those things are standardized in the way, they know what to expect every day. And Shichuke is sustain. They want to implant this kind of mindset into their employees so that they are constantly engaged in continuous environment mindset, right? That discipline is set in their heart and mindset, and they work together to continuously improve and make their business better than yesterday or before. So this is 5S methodology that can be used for any process improvement. This can be done. And here are examples. They had, it's pretty nice, right? Pretty nice place. However, this cleaning area was organized by code and color, and they put the taping and designated the places to anything into. So by doing so, it's organized, it's sorted, and it's shining, and it's standardized, and everything looks nicer and efficient. Okay, here's a process change example. So after benchmarking, and now you are thinking of process changes, and um, as we have discussed before, they took the example of accepting a patient, and how a patient is going through an experience, and color coded who is responsible for each step, and the nurse is taking the patient and taking the person to the room and take the vitals and chart to a resident they give, and then the resident or the doctor is going to review the chart and see the patient and consult with attend, and all these things are going to be done, and it's done by uh, and the secretary is going to take care of the rest, and this is done, and then you are going to make another chart, as we discussed before, to see who is responsible for what, and is this value adding or value non-value adding, and the time is going to be also added, and this process change will be indicated in your value stream mapping, right? So this is one other thing, how you are going to change this process will be indicated in this process change map. Layout change. So we have layout here. Typically, if you come to a doctor's office, you come to waiting room first, and then you go to reception and talk with the staff there, and then come back and sit there, and then go to the nurse, and nurse calls you, and you come there and go into the to take the vitals, and then go to exam room, and then treatment room, and at last you come back to the billing and pay any copay or things of the nature, and then go back home. This is the process, and sometimes it may be necessary for you to change the layout. How can we change the layout so that it can be more patient-friendly room, right? So that's something that many health professionals are thinking of. And here's an example that I thought it was good. So let me share with you this video clip. I'm gonna, oops. So design change or design layout change examples here.
If we want to really reinvent primary care and re-engineer the teams that work within the primary care space, what would that new kind of space look like? When you walk into the space, you're not walking into a rectangular, fluorescent lit room to be sick. Patients walk in and say, wow, I can't believe how at ease I feel when I just walk in here. And that's design with intent. The intent is to really lower that sense of anxiety. Most of our spaces have traditionally been designed with the clinician in mind. Here, we want that space to serve primarily our patients and to serve our team in a supportive way.
I think that the most important thing in an exam room is to be able to bring the patient up with you to look at the medical record. Basically, all you need is a little bit of space so that your back is not to the patient, so that you can easily stop what you're doing and look the patient in the eye, make the patient feel like they're part of developing or writing their own record, and it helps them get engaged.
So there's a lot of line of sight built in to the design of our space so that patients really see what's happening with their care team. I think for any practice, there's always room for space modification. What you need to do is think about the roles that are functioning within that space and think about what is required to have those roles most efficiently operate. We don't realize how much space dictates the way we act and behave with each other.
Okay, so now I would like to ask some of you to share what you noticed from this video clip about layout change. What do you think is different? How are they approaching customer or patient care in this hospital? Can anybody share after watching this video?
They want to spend more time with patient history and just talking about how their history can affect what they're going through now or what's the next step to helping them out. So that was different.
Carolina, that was a very good point. So they wanted to spend more time with the patient. So they know that every patient actually values the times they spend with healthcare providers, and they wanted to do as much as possible. And for that purpose, they redesigned their layout so that they can spend more time and with the patient. That's what happened. So that's great. Anyone else?
I was gonna mention something just about like the about the patients as well as like them changing their design to benefit the time spent with them. Just because I know if you're at the hospital, a lot of it could be overwhelming the amount of people there. So like to feel as if you're almost like important and that they care about you more and have the time to spend with you, I think that could just be really important to someone like in the hospital.
Right. So if you are in the hospital, you want to feel cared by the healthcare providers, not just as one of inventories. So changing things around, giving the impression that we designed our place for you, not for us. I think that's a very important statement that any patient can sense when they go to hospital or doctor's office. Very good, Flynn. Any other thoughts? So I was, pleasantly surprised for two things. The first one is they did not design this process for the clinicians, for the doctors and staffs and nurses. They designed the spaces for the patients. That's what is surprising to me, right? Who is more important? And they, as I said, made a clear statement that this is for the patient, and we want to do everything for the patient. And look at the space that they made. It's amazing that. So if I just, here, look at this space. Where is it? Yeah, so it's like a living room, right? Instead of a, a doctor's office, it looks like a living room, and that's very encouraging to see. And they put premium furnitures and everything there, and very and look at the windows. They gave the window spaces to the patient, not to the doctors. So that's also interesting to see that. And I was also surprised that they are, look at this, the doctor is showing the screen to the patient, right? Oftentimes, if you go to a doctor's office, the doctor is writing something, seeing something, but you cannot see it.
but this place designed these processes so that the patient can participate in reading the charts or records, and also see how the doctor is entering the information into there. And it's very participatory process, and they are gaining trust from the patients. These days many places are losing the patient's trust, but this place is gaining it because they are transparent and sharing everything. And even stepping procedure right here, so they can see everything. They don't have high walls, and they are showing things to the patient, and everything is open in the way. They are giving this impression that we are open place, we are transparent, we are trustworthy, we are not hiding anything from you, the kind of impression they are giving. So this kind of layout change is a drastic thing, but how much trust they can gain from their patients and people who are visiting this place. It might be more stressful for the people who are working there. However, definitely it's a place that many patients would like to be in, right? So we see the fundamental change of layout because they are patient-centered rather than primary care provider-centered, right? So that we see here. So in this phase, what we see is we can brainstorm, we can benchmark, we can also change the process, we can also see the layout change, and those things are and 5S process. So those are those things are coming together for you to think of alternatives and implementation measures to improve the process. Those are being done in this phase. And when you have this kind of alternatives now, as I said, it's a time to pinpoint the experiments, the impact of each alternative on your dependent variable, your satisfaction rate, or the wait, decreasing the wait time, or increasing the quality of care. Those things are your dependent variable, and you want to see whether, oh yeah, changing this layout, will it improve the process? Or let us use this methodology. Will it increase our quality of care or not? So we are going to we have multiple alternatives, and which one is going to help us to see the most impact on our process? That's what we want to test at the time. You want to use this design of experiments to pinpoint that. Okay, so what is design of experiments? Design of experiments is um, a method to test input variables and their impact on output variables. It's a very easy way for improving the process itself, and see the pros and cons of each method that you are trying to implement. That's done here. And it's a one-stop method for analyzing all influencing factors. So you can check multiple factors all together. And in that way, you can screen in influencing factors and screen out not important factors. And prepared over one vector at a time experiment, which is also a good method, but it's time consuming, and it may lose to see the interaction between a few number of vectors. And it uses techniques such as blocking and replication. In the way you can see what is more influencing than the other, influential than the other factors. And here's a blocking method. For example, if you want to see the impact of, you want to exclude the impact of vector A, you are going to just block it and see what happens when you are changing other vector around. So you are blocking it for a while so that you can also see what vector B and C are doing. So you are making it irrelevant by blocking that. And for example, here vector B is blocked over there. So in that way, you can measure and adjust how other factors are influencing your dependent variables.
So let me take an example of tire pressure and speed driven and gasoline octane use. So here, trial 1, you have tire pressure of 35 psi. That's I learned that pounds per square. I forgot. Pound per square something.
Inch.
That's what is it?
Pounds per square inch.
Yeah, pound per square inch. Thank you. Pounds per square inch. So that's psi, tire pressure, and we usually drive at 32, right? But in this, uh, motorcycle example, the tire pressure start from 35, and say the speed is 55 miles per hour, and that's how you decide to test first. And then the octane level is 85. And as you know, if you go to gas station, there's 85, 87, 19, or 91 premium octane and so forth. And the notion is that the more expensive it is, the better efficiency you get. But it's not exactly the case, but that's the notion these days. Now 35, 55, and 85, and the miles per gallon was 24 miles per gallon. That's what we saw. And then in trial 2, you want to see whether these are influential factors or not. And in that case, what you do is now you put speed the same and octane level the same, and then you change tire pressure only, right? Tire pressure only, and see what happens with miles per gallon. Of course, you have to assume that you are driving the same place. Say it could be a stadium, it could be from Glassboro to Deptford or Cherry Hill. You are testing it, or you are going to go to 95 and then drive from Philadelphia to Washington D.C. I don't know what that might be, but you are just assuming that that's the same road condition, and then you have tire pressure 40 psi. You increase it by 5, and what happened? You saw that miles per gallon increase. It jumped from 24 to 32. So we see that from this trial, oh wow, tire pressure has something to do with the efficiency, gas per mile, miles per gallon efficiency, and that's a 32, 8 miles per gallon. It increased, so it's an exciting thing that you have discovered. So you want to verify whether this is true or not. So you have to give another trial. So now you want to change the speed. So from 55 to 65, and what happens? So 40, 65, 85. So from 55, 10 miles per gallon, 10 miles of the speed were added, and then you found that miles per gallon decreased. So you see that, oh wow, speed has negative relationship with my gas efficiency, right? So that's what we see in the third trial. So tire pressure had a positive impact, however, speed is a negative impact. And then you can also test another one. Then fourth trial was octane level. Let's change the octane level from 85 to 90, right? Octane level, it was changed to 90, and it's a premium gas. And did it change anything? Actually, it did not, right? So we see it was stating 45 and speed went back to 55 level. If everything went well, actually what has to happen was it has to increase from 32 to like 35 or something like that. That was our expectation. That was our hypothesis. However, what happened was actually it decreased from 32 to 25. So we see that, oh, really, you know what? Octane level has negative relationship actually to your gas efficiency. And I heard it's because when you are using certain type of engine, it cannot handle high level of octane, and that will be adversely affecting your gas efficiency. So that's what I heard. So from these 4 trials, we have not done a lot of trials, but only 4 times. And after these 4 times, we can see a lot of things. First of all, tire pressure is positive impact, speed is negative impact, and octane level is actually negative impact. So that we identified only 3-4 attempts. So we established this baseline, first trial, and then 2, 3, 4, 5. And we can now change these things, right? For example, let's say this is not motorcycle example, say our customer satisfaction level, and we can see it's not tire pressure, but say this is a process change, and then having more employees, and let's replace octane level with empathy, whether you are treating the person with empathy or not, right? So, and then you can try your customer satisfaction level at 4 trials, and then you can see how they are changing, and that will give you a good idea about how effective that alternative is. For example, having empathy or process changing or hiring one more person. How does that impact that? So you know put things around and then execute that 4 times, and then with that you can glean a lot of information from that and tell whether this alternative is more effective than the others, right? That can be done when you are doing experiments. So that's a benefit of design of experiments. And there is another method called one factor at a time method instead of multiple factor at a time. And let me see, that can be time consuming because you have to do 2 to the power of 2 factorial design. And that's going to be time consuming. And sometimes you can lose or you cannot see the interactions between factors. So that I would like to encourage you to use a multi-factor model instead of one factor model. That's more effective. So that's what I recommend you to do.
We all know today's customers are savvy, armed with product and price.
So this is a video about treating patients or customers with empathy and how does that change. So in terms of interactions, I want to bring this term interaction to your attention. So I want you to watch this video and see how empathy plays an important role in business.
Information as well as ratings and reviews. Their expectations are higher than ever, but they want something more, something that's harder to quantify, but nonetheless vital to your bottom line. They want connection, a relationship with your brand. People want to buy from people, ones they trust and like. So maintaining positive, fulfilling relationships means going beyond basic transactions and polite thank yous. So every time you or your employees interact with customers, you have an opportunity to create human moments that matter to your business. When people do business with you, you become a part of their personal experience. Get to know them, not as numbers in a database, but as human beings. Start by gathering and sharing insights collected through social media, research, surveys, calls, and comments. Financial services company Charles Schwab organizes customer comments by themes and topics and distributes them across the company. Thousands of associates, including brand and call center team members, read these great customer insights. Employees report having a better understanding of how to serve customers and solve for their needs, leading to an improved customer experience. Charles Schwab's business results point to the success of this strategy. Like Charles Schwab, Hallmark Business Connections believes in listening to customers' voices, uncovering likes, dislikes, and expectations. In order to sincerely understand what we're hearing, we've developed an immersion program to help us feel what our customers feel, to not only see what we're doing right, but to know where we can improve and develop departmental action plans. Not everyone has the natural ability to understand and share the feelings of others, especially when conflict is involved. But if you want your employees to build relationships, empathy is a must-have. It's how we make bad situations good and good situations great. It requires awareness and emotional intelligence. Employees can't develop these skills if you hold them back. Empower your employees, and most importantly, your frontline people, to address situations at hand and create positive and memorable experiences for each customer. To put empathy into action. Ask your frontline employees to keep a checklist identifying customers' emotions and reactions during an interaction. Were they angry, ambivalent, elated? Encourage role reversal too. How would they react if they were billed twice or received slower than expected service? With this heightened awareness, employees develop a sensitivity that can spur positive interactions, resulting in the right emotional experiences. Now give them the power to create moments that will increase customers' emotional attachment to your brand. Here's an example. Traveling back from vacation, the family realized to their horror that their son's favorite stuffed animal, Joshy the giraffe, had been left in their hotel room at the Ritz-Carlton. The quick-thinking dad told his distraught son that Joshy had just decided to stay and enjoy a few extra days. As soon as his son was out of earshot, he called the Ritz to see if Joshy showed up in the lost and found, and told them the story of his heartbroken son. The average customer service person might have gone through the normal protocols of checking, but this one did something 10 times better. As soon as the staff heard about the lost toy, they immediately felt for the little boy and got creative with the idea of Joshy's extended vacation. They photographed the giraffe as he received his own Ritz-Carlton staff car, sunned himself on a lounge chair at the pool, and chilled out in the spa. Upon the family's return home, they received a package with not only the stuffed animal, but with photos and details of Joshy's fun. Not only did this small act of kindness make the boy feel good, but it turned their family into raving brand advocates and brought worldwide attention to the Ritz-Carlton. Consumers already hold this hotel chain to high standards, but this time, employees exceeded everyone's expectations and set a new standard for customer engagement. Did it cost the Ritz-Carlton much? No. Was it fun for the employees and made them love their job more? Oh, yes. Was it putting empathy into action? Most definitely. The feel-good power of empathy can't be underestimated when it comes to business results. It's the bond between companies and their customers. As every one of your interactions becomes a human-to-human moment, rather than an employee-to-customer event, just think of the impact to your customers and your company.
Right. So I showed this video to you because I think there's interaction between any business activity and empathy. So especially in the healthcare industry, I know the healthcare industry, especially the doctors and nurses these days are just overwhelmed. They went above and beyond of what they need to do, and it's very hard to show empathy to the patients and the family. But when it is shown, I think that has a tremendous impact and interactions. So that's why I wanted to show that. So interactions occur when the effect of one factor depends upon the level of another factor. And good example is drug A reduce blood pressure, how drug B reduce anxiety. So, one patient took it together. However, unfortunately, drug A and B are used together may lead to a heart attack or stroke. So that's a terrible interaction that we should be really careful and aware of when taking any medicine. However, there are like a good interactions, like empathy and any service, right? That has one smile or two smiles or one considerate words, one kindness that makes a lot of difference, even at a receptionist or building department or a doctor or any person in the business, right? That makes a lot of difference, and that's a positive difference, positive interactions. And that can be also identified in this design of experiment if we measure and test that. So I wanted to talk about that. Advantages of design of experiments. Classical experiments are time consuming and a lot of efforts are put in there. However, by running multiple factors together in this design of experiments, that's much faster, and you can also spot interaction effects from there. So in that sense, DOE is encouraged, as we have seen here. And let's now move on to the next topic, that is select the best solution. Now you have saw what alternatives you have from the first stage and second stage. Now you check the impact of that using DOE, design of experiments. Now the time for you to select the best solution, because it might be difficult for you to implement multiple solutions at the same time. So you might have to implement one at a time. In the case, obviously, you may want to go with lower hanging fruits. That's a no-brainer. But if you are seriously committed to process improvement, at the time, you have to pick the best solution. And how do you determine what is the best, right? And sometimes people say good is the enemy to the best, right? There are so many good things out there, and we are tempted to choose good things rather than the best thing. However, what a mistake it is when the opportunity cost is the best, right? We don't want to lose the best for the sake of good choices. So we do need to do every effort to pick the best choice. And that's what we need to do here. And when you are choosing the best solution, you are constrained by feasibility. You may have great ideas, and if you're really passionate about the process improvement, you might persuade your stakeholders by presenting the benefits. The benefits overweigh that cost and difficulties. If you can convince that to your stakeholders, then I think it can be very much implemented. However, feasibility is a serious constraint we have, and we have to take that into consideration. Now, if you have chosen the best solution inside of your business setting, then now you want to choose, you have to design the implementation plan. How are you going to implement the plan? Usually it starts with employee training, and second of all, the studies show that the most important thing is the commitment of the CEO or the boss. The boss is really seriously committed to that process improvement, and show the enthusiasm, show the incentives, show the commitment. Then the employees below him or her are going to also be willing and commit themselves to that initiative or improvement plan. However, if the CEO is, oh, I don't care, it's just another thing that we are trying, and I don't care the result, and just do whatever you want, then no one cares, no one cares, and then it doesn't come to fruition. So the commitment from the CEO is very important, and then the person is going to encourage the employees to go through training and devise an implementation plan, and go through step by step how it's going, and have the milestone checking, right? How much milestone was checked and designed, and those can be verified on the way, right? So milestones will be marked and celebrated together. Those implementation can be done here. So if you decided to revamp a process or create another process, then you are going to have, how are you going to create the process? For example, launch the program, who is going to be in charge of the program? And as a result of putting this responsibility to the person, you have to acquit him from or unload him from another responsibility. That arrangement has to be made, and we are going to give you, say, $50,000 for this project, and you have to manage it as you want, and then incentivize or spend the money for the project, and communicate that with the entire organization, and do that, right? So the implementation has been done, and you have to first establish the baseline so that you know how much improvement you have made later, and you have to distribute posters and promotional materials to make this thing aware of the organization, and develop process or distribution of patient pamphlets or other promotion materials can be done, education and executing all those things can be done in implementation phase. And once you do that, you have start date and finish date and how much you are willing to spend, and you have to draw this project management diagram. It's this critical path method, and you see how likely you are going to finish your project in time, or if things goes bad, then I think we are going to finish by this time. If everything goes very well, then we can finish in 1 month or 2 months in advance and test everything out. That critical path method should be drawn, and you can check the progress one by one. And you could be the project manager, or you can designate somebody to check on the process yourself. And that's implementation, designing the implementation, and here's the implementation. Now you have to actually spend the money, and you have to do everything, then it's going to be done by that. Okay, so that's implementation phase. And now I'm going to form groups for you together as a group and brainstorm your improvement base. So let me stop sharing.